We are back here on the Lynn Hayes Freeland Show. I know I was just talking about heavy hors d'oeuvres and dinners, but now I need to make that transition. As I said, it's kind of an odd transition from food to eating disorders. But it's an interesting conversation because I think so often when we talk about eating disorders, we think about 20-year-olds. Well, Dr. Jamesena Talbott is a professor at Point Park University in the School of Business, and you're here to dispel that myth. It's not limited to or exclusive to 20-year-olds.
No, it's not. And the fascinating part is that many of the issues did arise in the 20s or teens, and maybe either wasn't dealt with or thought it had been dealt with, but now many of the researchers are saying, and the centers that are dealing with women with eating disorders have noted that there's a 42 to 45% increase in the number of women over 40. Wow. Some reports are showing, and research is showing, as much as 10 to 15% are over 50. So yeah, it's happening at a later stage in life because we're dealing with different things. But we also don't think of it as a disorder simply because we have to eat.
Right.
But think of, we understand substance abuse and alcohol abuse and alcoholism. Well, the go-to to feel better might be the pill to come up or the pill to go down. To take the drink to stop the shakes or to calm down, that turns into more than that. The other is the go-to food. So you've adopted food as essentially that zone of either comfort or, on the other end of the scale, when we're talking about anorexia, the appearance of youth, trying to hold on to a body image, trying to even hide behind the appearance of healthy, when in fact you're restricting your diet to the point where you're starving yourself to try to maintain an image that either isn't warranted or you're trying to meet this, you know, they're now saying the 40 is the new 20 and 50 is your 30.
It just keeps shifting.
As opposed to be delighted in who you are. Be delighted and have gratitude for the years you've lived and the experiences you've had. And yet we're dealing with unique issues over 40 and in that stage of life, such as career and job transitions and repositioning, things that maybe you thought you were going to have accomplished and didn't. There's things that you're now trying to do and thinking, can I still compete? I now have to learn something else. Now what do I do? Something that can be as exciting as starting a new business. Entrepreneurs, and they totally underestimate the toll that it's going to take on them, and yet how do you deal with stress, distress, the emotional upheavals in life that are going on at that point? And particularly what drew me into this was also looking at the workplace and women in the workplace and anxiety and stress and dealing with trauma in the workplace, sexual assault, sexual harassment, the difficulties that women often experience, particularly later in life. And as they're dealing with that, what are they finding to cope? How are they choosing to cope with it? And a lot of times it's dealing with food, whether it's
I'm saying food then becomes a mechanism in that dealing, either too much or too little.
Exactly. And the issue, like I said, on the one end, you're doing it and there's a body image issue, there's the psychology of that, what you've now come to believe about yourself. And I'm not suggesting that everybody that jogs or runs or takes care of themselves, but it's like anything else, it's the excess of it. So now you're looking at the damage you're doing to yourself, and by having the restricted calories, your body needs certain nutrients. And going into this latter stage of life, our hormones are different, we're dealing with all sorts of other things, our metabolism changes, and now you're adding this to it as well. Take someone who possibly also did this type of yo-yoing or dieting or atypical, when they were younger, trying to also look thin, be young, be whatever the market says is now beautiful. and you're still trying to do that, only now your body's not reacting to the diet the way it once did.
Oh yeah, because that changes.
Oh, you know,
Oh yeah, that changes. Yeah.
it totally changes.
changes, yeah.
But you just try then to do more. On the other end, which people really don't understand, is the bulimia and the binging, and to the point of binge eating disorder. You're going to binge and then try to purge, whether that's through the vomiting or through laxatives or, again, through excess exercise.
So let me ask you this before we take a commercial break. So then I'm guessing now in that 40-year range, that 50-year range, we're probably not even processing that that's what's going on because we think that's what happens to 20-year-olds.
Right. We're thinking, I can manage this. It's the, I can manage this. My plate is full, but I'm doing so many things. I've got this. Or if I just, stop eating for a while. Or I did fine all week, and now I do a binge that lasts the weekend. And nobody can understand what that looks like, and I can explain that when we talk next. But if I showed you what and I dealt with this myself, what that binge period looks like, you wouldn't believe the food. One nutritionist said it's like food bombing your gut, and your stomach goes from this size to the size of a football.
Oh, that thought. We got a lot more to talk about this morning on the Lynn Hayes Freeland Show. Don't you go away.